Welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogrammed Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. And Chantal Donnelly, physical therapist and author of Settled, How to Find Calm in a Stress-Inducing World. Here at City Club Los Angeles, we follow our guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Welcome back to the ANEW Insight Podcast at City Club LA. We are back for the second half of our interview with mobility specialist Kim Spencer. Yay! Kim gave us some background about her inspiration to become a mobility specialist and how she forged her own niche in the fitness industry. We are very excited to learn more. So, Kim, can you explain the functional range conditioning system and how your 3 accreditations as a mobility and strength specialist have impacted your training methods?
Okay. First off, I don't want to butcher the functional range system because it is quite unique. It is quite entailed. And I don't want to butcher it because it is very in-depth as well. But it is a whole system. And I guess for me, the way I interpret it is it's a system of thinking. So it's a system that gives you reasons why you would choose whatever tool you end up choosing. They give you the tools, they give you the research. I mean, their team has put an immense system together where they just take so much research about the body down from like all the way from the cellular level to like thermodynamics and things where my brain is like frying. But it's great that you can be in a system where we all sort of speak the same language and we're working all in the same system. We're just like, maybe you're over there across the way because you have pain in a certain area. And really the goal is always to make a healthy joint first. Everybody's goal in the system, no matter where they're working in the system, PT, chiro, strength trainer, Pilates person, the first thing that you're trying to do is make a healthy joint. And so that, again, goes to the joint specific exercises and tools. So it's basically about using the system to create healthy joints that are movable, that have the capacity to tolerate whatever it is that they need. Not everyone needs to be super mobile, but every human needs to have a spine that works.
Right. So there's multiple disciplines that learn this system?
So there are, yes. So you'll often be in like my first one I was in with mostly trainers, but dancers, athletes, chiros. Yes, you'll be taking your coursework with other people in different fields. Yeah, absolutely.
And how did you find this?
PTs. There's a lot of PTs. Yeah.
How did you hear about this?
Going back to the knee cars, discovering about knee rotations, and then, who coined cars, and then that deep hole of going down that rabbit hole just led me there. And then there was also another Pilates person that I used to work closely with in the sense that over Instagram, and she started to get really into it too. So yeah.
Wow. I love that you learned this new system from a physical therapist or heard about it from a physical therapist and then work with people like me. I'm a physical therapist who know nothing about it and was completely blown away by the system.
Well,
so
the Dr. Andrea Ospino who came up with this system, and now he has a team of people. He is a chiropractor, and there's a lot of chiropractors in there. And each accreditation or each course that I took really just expanded on what I feel like the first time you get there and you're just dipping your toes into the surface. And then you go a little bit deeper and you're like, oh, that's why I would choose whatever it is. And then when I took the last course, which was like super intense, because you usually watch a lot of videos like about 2 weeks before you take the course so that you're already slightly fried, so that when you go there, they officially fry you and you're like mush by the time you leave. But that one was mind-blowing for me and actually very challenging and very hard. Some of the stuff that I was learning about I felt almost beyond my brain's capacity. So it took watching lots of note taking, reviewing my notes, then going back and then adding to my notes, and then going to the course and adding to those notes. So, but it's nice to be able to just continuously learn. Mm-hmm. I feel like even now, granted, I'm thinking about my notebook and just thinking of like, I really need to go back and review all these notes again. But it's nice that you can keep not re-experiencing, but kind of constantly reevaluating and relearning and discovering like, oh, that's why I would choose that over that, or just different ways to use the tools, or I don't know. It just seems never ending.
Yeah.
In the sense.
Well, you've always been a really innovative instructor. I remember working side by side with Kim, and I would always like have my side eye on Kim, watching what she would do, because she would just invent all of this amazing stuff, and it was just so, just innovative. So this must be right up your alley, and expanding all of your knowledge.
I think it is, because while still being very super joint specific, again, like I'm trying to do something specific with this hip, or I'm doing something very specific with this knee. I use the creativity to, okay, but they have a naughty pelvis that keeps conflicting with the knee that we're trying to isolate, or the hip that we're trying to isolate. So I'll have to learn ways to kind of restrict or block certain areas, or give them contact points to help them understand where they are. I have to get them into certain positions, find creative ways to get them to feel something that they just can't feel. And it's really about internalizing everything. So it's not about putting someone into an exercise or putting them into a position. It's really about, okay, well, what does this joint need, and how do we get that person to feel whatever it is that we're trying to get them to feel without me being too involved in it.
Wow. You're like a Jedi master at this point now.
Yeah, I've been called a magician at Universal Studios a lot. They think that I'm a witch, or they think oh my God, you're a magician, or you're a witch. And I swear, I'm like, I just gave you a very simple exercise.
A good witch.
Yes.
You keep talking about how in-depth this system is, so you might hate this question, but okay. I love asking this question. So it's sort of like the elevator pitch question. If you had 5 minutes with someone and you could only share during that 5-minute time, that's something that's going to help them mobility-wise, and they're complaining about the old age aches and pains. We know it's not from old age, but that general, like, I'm getting stiffer as I get older, I'm having more pains floating around my body, and you only had 5 minutes with them. Is there some information that you would always pull out, some advice that you would pull out for somebody like that?
I mean, honestly, move more. Move more. Don't try to fix anything. Just move more. Now you can move more specifically. If I had that 5 minutes with them, I would ask specifically what. And sometimes when I'm at Universal Studios, I have 5 minutes. So I would just tell them move more. I would typically give them something specific. So if it was shoulders, I'd have them just rotate. Just where you are, rotate your shoulders. You could choose any position you want, just rotate more. try to have good tension, because most people don't understand. They just kind of, flippity floppity, and it's not flippity floppity. Try to isolate your joints and rotate or move them more. And that's basically it. I mean, that's less than 5 minutes. But then I would take those 5 minutes to show them some, like, one option. And I try to, with shoulders and hips and knees and ankles, it's almost always comes down to just showing rotations. It comes back to like cars, controlled articular rotations typically, but sometimes it's just move more.
What I gathered from working with you, I can't remember how many sessions we did, maybe 10-ish.
I think a little bit more than 10, but yeah.
Yeah. Micro movements of torture, 10 sessions of that. But what I got a lot out of it, but one thing I noticed is that, and you just said that with the rotation, move more, move in rotation, and you said with tension. And
that's
I don't know,
a hard one.
So what it was for me, that visual, and I think you even gave me this visual, was that I was moving through thick mud as I was doing those rotations. So anytime I moved my spine, anytime I moved a shoulder joint or an ankle or whatever it was we were working on, it was like I was slowly moving through thick mud. So we could spend hours just on trying to move my mid back, for example, which I think we did a couple of sessions. And that was it. That was that tension that you were talking about.
And that's new, especially for people in a Pilates world. Like, I've worked with people who have done strength training and worked out with weights, and they seem to understand that tension better than Pilates people just think that. Now, I feel like maybe I might have been a culprit of that, or might have said that, but like, to relax things. We tend to relax things. But what I've encountered, especially with this work and working with people in 5-minute segments, is that the body really needs that tension to feel stable. Most of the time, I recall one girl that I was working with, she said, she had some weird thing that she had to do it was Halloween Horror Nights, and she did a repetitive, which is what a lot of us deal with, a repetitive movement. And it was her shoulder. And I just had her do shoulder rotations, but with high tension. And she walked away just like eyeballs wide, just like, oh my God, that was amazing. You're a magician. And then anytime I saw her, she was just like she would just be like, oh my God, my shoulder just like this is not common, but 100% zero pain, all gone, totally pain-free the rest of the run.
Wow.
That is not common, but that it was the tension. The shoulder just needed that stability, that rotational tension and stability throughout that capsule, and just to feel like it could do its job.
Wow. You work with a very diverse array of clientele. You
Very
have LA
diverse.
football
Very
team.
diverse.
You have the universal dancers. You also have
pain
people
in the
with
butt physical therapists who come see you
Pain
every
pain
once
in
in
the
a
butt,
while.
physical therapists. You have people with chronic
I
pain.
have osteopaths that come to me. Yeah.
So how do you tailor a program to that individual person? What do you think about them? How do you formulate your treatment plan?
So that's the great thing about the system is, number one, joint health. So I got to make whatever they're feeling healthy. And I sometimes have to go above and below, right? Because sometimes attacking that area is dealing with fear, especially if they've been chronic. So I got to kind of look above, look below, and just establish joint health first. It's like primary, number one, joint health. Does that joint do what it needs to do? Shoulders should rotate without pain. If there's pain there, that's the first thing that we're addressing. How we go about it, again, it depends on, their physiology, their history. Is there fear? Are they willing to do their homework? Because most of this stuff is input. You got to constantly drive input into the tissue. And so, it depends on all of those things.
I'm curious about the fear. How do you, as a psychologist, I think that that's really interesting to me. How do you get them to overcome their fear?
Oh, it depends on the level of fear that we're dealing with. Most of the time, it's especially with spine and neck and shoulder.
And everywhere.
A lot of upper, actually. Not so much lower, but again, there's that dancer that I'm working with who has fear with the ankle. It's getting them there, but not pushing it, right? So I always say the nervous system is queen. You cannot disrespect her. You have to respect what she's telling you. If she's telling you there's pain, well, first I teach them what type of pain is okay and what, like, no go ever. Do not push through this pain. Mm-hmm. There's a specific type of pain that we don't push through. And then there's pain like, are you uncomfortable? Is there fear there? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, get as close as you can to that, and we'll work with that for right now. Mm-hmm. And I have several people who have had to work through chronic spine pain, and she knows it, a very specific exercise where they jump. They jump, and it's like fear, and it's like that sends panic into your nervous system.
Totally.
Once that happens, we're not going to accomplish anything. I can't talk you through anything because nervous system is queen. She's going to say, that is not okay. And now that nervous system is going to take even more range out. So we have to kind of play. We have to be aware of working with that. And I try to teach people today, maybe you only go a few centimeters. All right, that's fine. But you're still doing that input. Yes. Okay, great. So don't push it. Get as close as you can. Maybe the first set is very limited. The second set, you might get a little bit more. And if you don't, it's okay. Maybe the next day is even worse. But then maybe 3 days, oh my gosh, you can go through the whole exercise. Awesome. Don't judge it. Don't judge that fear. Just listen to it and try to work with it.
I used to work with biofeedback for people who have chronic pain. And a lot of times their pain can be mitigated by doing simple breathing exercises, learning how to, be more mindful, even meditating. Do you give them some breathing to help them calm their nervous system?
First thing we do in any of my sessions is breathing. That's the first thing. Now, that is not incorporated initially in the system, but as you get deeper into the system, it's very much integrated into the system, which is also great because you don't really learn that until you're like, oh, so these are some breathing exercises that we can do. So I go through breathing. But again, if you are going into a range where that nervous system is set off, it doesn't matter. No amount of breathing or whatever is going to help in that moment. But you can just teach the breathing patterns. Absolutely. Most people don't know how to I don't want to say breathe right because I don't like to use wrong and right, but don't know how to maximally utilize their breath. Very short. And breathing exercises are definitely incorporated. Where to breathe into.
That, of course, is part of that nervous system.
Absolutely.
Right? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes,
as dysregulated as you are, then you don't breathe properly. And then that becomes a pattern. So you go to a session with you and you no longer know how to breathe properly because you've been so tense and guarded with the pain.
And again, I go back to, we're not trying to accomplish everything today. Get as close as you can. And get to that range and then take an inhale. So there's definitely a lot of breath incorporated. I don't talk about it a lot because, people want to learn about the joint mobility or, mobility, the big word that's going around, right? But I absolutely talk about breathing, using breath as a reset instead of fixing your posture. It's okay. Where do we want the joints? And where do you want to breathe? That is your reset. I hardly ever use the word abs anymore. I talk about the spine. I talk about the breath. We're talking about spine and breath, and we're doing a hard exercise. Voila, we have the core. And I didn't even use that word, or abs. Yes, it's breathing, using the feedback. All of that stuff is incorporated. And I think, this magical word of mobility. You know, people see like all these flexibility. It's really not about that. It's a primary role is to accomplish joint health. And are we creating an environment for that specific person for what they need? So, you know, like my soccer players were telling me, and I'm not working with the whole team, it's just a select few, but you know, they were talking about, I don't know if you've seen like on Instagram, there's like a Pilates person taking them through these crazy exercises on the reformer. And, you know, I was telling, and I'm like, yeah, that's fun. It's great. But you guys are doing so much work. They're training when I walk in. They're doing really good exercises. I have a really good team of people giving them some really good exercises. So they don't need more exercises. Well, I'm going to come in there and do more exercises. I'm going to make the joints feel better, work better, move better. So a lot of ankle stuff. We do toe stuff. We do big toe stuff. Things that don't get attention. We spend 2 minutes stretching, which is hard for some people to spend 2 minutes in a stretch, relaxing their nervous system, trying to calm their nervous system down because they're always, you know, go, 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 go. And just telling them, we're going to spend 2 minutes relaxing in a stretch. They're like, oh my God, it is the hardest thing. It's like I'm torturing them for 2 minutes. And I'm like, I'm just asking you to breathe and relax into the stretch. That's all I'm asking you to do.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
That is cool.
Got to shake it up for them. So great.
Yeah.
You do workshops, you have online training, and then you have in-person studio one-on-one training. And then, of course, the stuff that you do with the athletes and the performers at Universal Studios. Can you tell us what's different about your workshops versus, say, your online training?
So the workshops is mostly depending on what kind of workshop, because I did one for Pilates teachers specifically to teach spine. Just telling them how to get some segmental work, even just hand cues, audio cues, instead of always cueing from the front, trying to just take those little fingers and putting them to the back. It's funny that we're doing spine work and that we never touch the spine. And so just there's that. There's workshops where I just teach clients, you know, from their studios, just rotate more. I teach them the CARs, the controlled articular rotations. Sometimes I'll teach kin stretch class, which is a segment of the functional range system where you basically teach the functional range conditioning on a group setting. So it takes, you know, in a class, there could be 10 totally different hips that you're working with. So you got to really be on the ball, creative, aware of. On
the ball and socket.
Yeah.
Dun.
So that people can work where they are, because it's not about putting someone in an exercise. It's about adjusting whatever exercise or drill that we're utilizing to get something out of that hip. So those are mostly the workshops that I teach. Online is, I do online private, you know, one-on-one sessions. Basically, I mentor a few Pilates people, and they've taken the courses themselves. It isn't a course where you're like, oh, okay, now I can go teach. It's like really a course where you're like, oh my God, now what? Like now I don't know what to do with all of this. So I really try to teach them how to, one, understand it in their own body, but also hear options to teach it in a Pilates setting. And then the online also is so that you can, you know, if you go on there and you're like, okay, I really need to work on my hip. There's like a bunch of hip specific classes where we're trying to open up more space, create more capacity. And I make them very, very specific. So if you're like, I want to work on hip flexion, boom, there's like a dozen hip flexion based classes. And it really is that specific. It isn't just hip. It's, you know, hip internal rotation and hip flexion, or it's, you know, hip internal rotation and abduction. So it gets very specific so that people can utilize it. And then in person, yeah, we're just, again, going back to where's the healthy joint and what do you need it for? And How can we strengthen that? And in the process of doing that, guaranteed we'll start with one. I had a client come in and she had really bad neck stuff, and then it turned into, then we had a shoulder, and then it became dealing with hip, and then she was squatting and she hurt her knee. So it's like guaranteed we will circulate through the whole system. Or we find one thing and you're like, oh, if that, I can make that feel great. I want to make this feel better. Because when I'm doing my overhead press, I feel pain here. It's like, well, why? You don't have to function like that. No, let's get rid of that. And then it'll be like, oh, I was squatting and I can't get past a certain weight. Well, let's look at the hips. Why not? Oh, well, that's because you're missing this internal rotation or whatever it is. So.
Wow. Well, before we open it up to questions from the audience, how do people find you other than Instagram? Because I can imagine after people hear this, they're going to want to come to one of your workshops or work with you.
So my website, mobility, oh my gosh, don't even know my website. It's studiofocusedpilates.com.
All one word?
Yes, all one word, yes. And my Instagram is Mobility Focused Pilates because I added the mobility after I had already had my site for the studio. So
wonderful. Well, we would love to open it up to some questions from the audience. Does anybody have a question?
Be nice.
Be nice. Don't be mean.
Hi. So I was wondering, with your specialty, what is the rate of people that you see get off of pain medicine?
Oh, that's a good one. Most of them are seeing people, chiropractor, massage. It depends on the person, right? So some of my chronic pain people will probably never come off of this medication that they're being treated for neuro stuff. But I have clients that are like, oh yeah, I don't see my chiropractor anymore, or I don't take pain meds as often, but they still have episodes, especially my chronic pain people. So there's different levels to that. So it depends, but it definitely decreases for sure, which is a huge relief. Right?
That's right.
Less money paid out, even though they're still seeing me, but
yeah,
it's still less
fewer
money.
Drugs. Anyone else have a question? I see somebody looking ponderous. Yes.
Have somebody
Yes.
coming down to the mic.
Come and join us.
Do you work with folks who have had knee surgeries?
Yes. My daughter being one.
Oh, you did. I missed that. Sorry.
Yeah, she had two. She had two surgeries. That's why I actually ended up in this field.
Cut the last bit of that.
Yeah.
But do you work with a lot of people, continuously with that? Or is it more preventative or just a mix of folks?
Good question. It's probably a mix. I would say a mix because there's some preventative, some post, some trying to get ready for. So.
And what would you say about range of motion, like after, say, someone who's had surgery?
Depends, right? It depends. Like I hate saying it depends, but it really does, right? It depends on their physiology, their history. Again, fear. Is there fear related to that area? Are they willing to do their homework? Because seeing me one time a week isn't going to cut it. But the exercises that I give are simplistic and enough that they can do them at home. Like I try to make it as simple as possible, and it's really about the intent that you put into it. So,
I do have another question.
Yes.
Too. Curious about younger folks that are still developing in their body.
Yeah.
In particular, like let's say a young person who's interested in soccer and they're only 6, 7, and they start off with the little leagues and stuff like that. I've been given mixed information about they're kind of young to actually get really serious about that, or even if it's not serious, it should be more playful because they're still developing in their body. Curious about what do you think about that?
So particularly what I do in my field, it can be fun. Like, oh, your knee rotates like that, or your ankle does that. I mean, you're not giving, personally, I'm not giving them anything that would harm them or hurt them. It could grow interest in their body, listening to their body. I think teaching a young athlete to listen to their body, to understand how to stretch, to quiet their nervous system, to not fear when something happens. I think those are empowering tools to give
Absolutely.
a young
I
athlete.
Agree. But I'm just curious mostly about like just the development of like, where, they are in their body, like, bones are still growing, things are still like coming into place, right?
Yeah. So the mobility system works on a cellular level. So it's really talking about using the nervous system to send chemicals at a cellular level. So this is where when you get into the system, it gets really down to the nitty gritty like that, which people don't need to know. They don't need to hear that. It's for me to know so I can make those decisions. But I definitely think that they can train a lot more than you think. Like I just worked with a 12-year-old diver, and I taught her a lot of joint specific stuff because it's going to be helpful for you. Like,
like building capacity, as you
just
talked about earlier.
Or, hey, your hip is supposed to do this. If it becomes painful to have a hip doing that, and you need to come back in. Or, if you keep attacking, if you keep working on this, part of your ankle, that's going to really help with your push off through the board. And we actually discovered that she didn't have a good gliding in the ankle. So it didn't matter how many stretches she was going to be given. She's going to hit that. So I taught her about, okay, if you ever feel that stiffness comes back, kids are so malleable. She came back that week, and we could go right into more ankle work because she got it to glide again.
Wow.
So I think giving them these tools is empowering and can help them maybe not have as many injuries in the future. I when it comes to like adding weight, then it's different, right? Like putting weight on the body, that's then you can do different. There's a different research out there and people say different things, but I think this joint specific type of movement is just nothing good. Gonna do nothing but help them.
Yeah, they're like little rubber band people.
I mean, I'm teaching a dance workshop, and I'm going to be working with 5-year-olds. So maybe,
how cute!
Yeah.
Well, we are out of time, but Kim is a guru when it comes to movement, and we have learned a lot about what you do. Although it's just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. we would love to learn more, but we don't have the time. But thank you so much for tuning into the ANEW Body Insight Podcast at City Club LA. We look forward to our next exciting interview, and we really hope you join us next time. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning into the ANEW Body Insight Podcast. Please remember, the content shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streaming, on YouTube at my.anew.insight and at anew-insight.com under the ANEW Body Insight Podcast tab. Follow us on our socials at my.anew.insight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more updates. Tune in next time and evolve with us.